his arrival, he made entry into the house and observed several individuals inside the house suffering from gunshot wounds.
A gruesome discovery in Las Vegas, a community already shaken by last week's mass shooting at UNLV. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to West Coast Wrap. I'm Alex Savage. Tonight, Las Vegas police say 4 people are dead, including 2 children, in what investigators are describing as a murder-suicide. Those victims were found shot inside a home on the northwest side of the city at around 10 o'clock this morning. Investigators say a man shot 3 children and a woman before then taking his own life. All 3 of those children are under the age of 14. One of them survived the shooting.
LVMPD dispatch received a 911 call from an individual stating he came to the apartment complex to check up on his brother. Upon his arrival, he made entry into the house and observed several individuals inside the house suffering from gunshot wounds.
Investigators say the child who survived is, quote, clinging to life. The exact relationship between everyone involved in this murder-suicide is not immediately clear. Authorities so far have not identified the victims or the shooter in this case. This tragedy comes on the heels of last week's deadly shooting on the UNLV campus. Fox 5's Jacqueline Schultz explains there are renewed calls to increase security at the university in response to that violence.
I always knew it could happen anywhere.
Security is important.
There should be more security. We are an open campus.
With the help of our regional partners, we are going to increase the level of staffing.
Friday, UNLV Police Chief Garcia pledged more law enforcement visibility and patrols, all in response to growing calls for more campus security. Garcia and President Keith Whitfield say a review of current safety practices has already begun, but did not elaborate on what other measures could be forthcoming. There is a groundswell to support limiting access to the open urban campus. In a Change.org petition with signatures creeping close to 15,000 people, it suggests broad requirements for ID verification. Building entrances will require anyone who wants to enter to provide some form of a verification to access. Others want radical change. UNLV should not be an open campus. I am a student at UNLV, and I believe that it should be a closed campus only for students and teachers. There are many homeless people that hang out in the student union. Fox 5 has covered safety concerns around UNLV for years. Students worry about pedestrian robberies at night and encounters with the homeless and mentally ill. In fall of 2022, following a string of stabbings in surrounding neighborhoods and the death of Officer Trung Tai, Metro Police and then Sheriff Lombardo pledged more patrols for an area they called a hotspot for crime.
They believe that if somehow we cordoned off or we made gates around all of ours, that we would make ourselves perfectly safe. And we know from other urban universities that's just not true.
President Whitfield voiced support for added law enforcement, cautioning against fortifying campus. In a November letter addressing protests by some off-campus organizers, he wrote, "Students should report threats and discrimination, but as a public university, every individual has a right to visit our campus."
Is just one of those situations that we are struggling with as a country. It's part of our safety is being a community.
Jacqueline Schultz, Fox 5 News, local Las Vegas.
Also in Las Vegas, a memorial service was held today for one of the 2 Nevada Highway Patrol officers who was killed in a hit-and-run crash. Law enforcement officers and first responders from across the country came together to pay their respects to Sergeant Michael Abate, who died on November 30th. Sergeant Abate and Trooper Alberto Felix were both struck by a vehicle on Interstate 15 in Las Vegas as they were working to help someone who was having car trouble. Trooper Felix's funeral was held last week. The suspected driver in this crash has been arrested. Closing arguments began today in the high-profile trial of 3 Tacoma, Washington police officers, all charged in the death of Manny Ellis. He died after being restrained by police in 2020. Officers Christopher Burbank and Matthew Collins are charged with second-degree murder, and Officer Timothy Rankin is charged with manslaughter. The prosecutor says that Ellis told the officers he couldn't breathe as he was being held down.
They chose instead to treat him like an animal, to restrain him, with his hands and his feet restrained behind his back, together with a hood over his head, in the most dehumanizing position you can imagine.
The defense in this case is set to give its closing argument tomorrow. Attorneys for the officers say Ellis was the aggressor and that he died of a drug overdose and heart disease. 3 cities in the Bay Area have agreed to a multi-million-dollar settlement with a woman who suffered a traumatic brain injury when she was struck by a rubber bullet that was fired by police. This happened in June of 2020 in Walnut Creek during a protest over the killing of George Floyd. 27-year-old Sarah Tuning will receive $3.4 million after settling her civil lawsuit against the cities of Walnut Creek, San Ramon, and Pleasant Hill. Tuning tells KTVU the payout was agreed to in April, but she wasn't prepared to share her story until now.
I remember I couldn't see anything all of a sudden. I couldn't hear anything. I just remember thinking, if I need to I'm going to fall over and I need to bend my knees, because if I don't, then I'm going to fall and hit my head.
Tuning says her memory and concentration will never be the same. Walnut Creek police say the department has expanded its options for other less than lethal weapons. Negotiations are ramping up among lawmakers over how to address issues at the southern border. One of those problems is the ongoing closure of Lukeville, Arizona's border crossing to traffic. Customs and Border Protection workers closed that crossing to cars last week. They say the closure will allow them to dedicate more resources to managing a surge of migrant arrivals. Arizona Governor Katie Hobbs visited Lukeville on Saturday, calling the situation there chaos. She says her creation of a new border security office will help to mobilize state resources to that area, but she wants the federal government to send more resources as well. The Cochise County Sheriff made that same plea today.
I appreciate the governor going to Lukeville. I appreciate we've asked for more National Guard here in Cochise County. I understand on Friday that has been agreed upon with the governor's office and our community, our mayors, my office. We need our governor involved in this. We truly need our governor involved. Where I get frustrated is Washington, D.C. This is their international border, but as long as they continue to ignore it, we're going to have intended consequences that bring an erosion to the quality of life.
Lawmakers on Capitol Hill are working right now on a deal that would include funding for border security. Lead Democrat negotiator Chris Murphy says he expects the White House will be engaged with these talks.
We don't want to shut off the United States of America, but we are willing to talk about tightening some of the rules so that you don't have 10,000 people arriving a day.
We have to put the politics aside, and we got to put our communities, we got to put Americans above everything else.
Many Republicans say a deal needs to include more than just additional funding for border security. They're pushing for more restrictions on asylum. The ongoing war in the Middle East prompted a global strike today with calls for a ceasefire in Gaza. Some students walked out of classrooms in the San Francisco Bay Area, demanding the international community do more to protect civilians in Gaza. KTVU's Jesse Gary has more tonight on this action.
Every single major movement in this country has been spearheaded by the youth.
In Hayward's Mount Eden Park, the latest movement led by young people gets a crash course on the ongoing conflict in the Middle East.
We basically have been talking to the students about what's going on and teaching them, how to find the truth. And so the students wanted to do this.
Mount Eden High School English teacher Daisy Caboose says cries for a ceasefire from the ground in Gaza have reached young ears around the globe. The fighting started after Hamas-led attacks killed approximately 1,200 Israelis and left hundreds more kidnapped. In response, the IDF is working to root out and destroy the Hamas terror network, and at times killing civilians in harm's way. Monday's global strike for Palestine renews calls for a ceasefire.
There was a ceasefire on October 6th where people were living peacefully, coexisting next door to each other. Gazans were coming into Israel with work permits, much like we have from Canada and Mexico here in the United States. Hamas ended that on October 7th.
Supporters of Palestinians trapped in Gaza say people living in the U.S. and elsewhere have a responsibility to pressure the international community to stop the fighting.
At this point, are our leaders in Congress only an arms dealer? And if that's the case, what is our role and what is our responsibility to change that and to act?
They say walking out of class and off jobs sends a strong message they don't support the killing of innocents, and they want government policies to reflect their feelings.
We adamantly and unequivocally support our students' freedom of expression, and we're not going to stand in the way of that.
The idea is that we should no longer be conducting business as usual. Enough is enough. Leaders and activists from across the world are saying we have to increase our advocacy because it is as though our elected officials are deaf, dumb, and blind to what is happening.
The off-campus lesson lasted for about 45 minutes before students walked back to their various campuses under the supervision of a teacher. And representatives with CARE say there will be more demonstrations at various city council meetings around the Bay Area Tuesday. In Hayward, Jesse Gary, KTVU, Fox 2 News.
Disturbing video coming out of Seattle where authorities say two drivers intentionally targeted pedestrians with their cars. Coming up, what investigators are doing to track down the drivers and the victims in these crashes.
And giving you a live look there towards the city of San Francisco, where we have a quiet pattern settling in for Tuesday. I'll have a look at the changes coming our way later in the week coming up.
Also coming up tonight, we'll introduce you to a 16-year-old who is on a mission to make an expensive sport accessible to kids in another country. A man is facing a hate crime charge tonight after police in Beverly Hills say he assaulted a man over the weekend. 44-year-old Jairus J. Silagi is also facing charges of assault with a deadly weapon, attempted robbery, and elder abuse. Police say the suspect struck a 75-year-old man with a belt while making an anti-Semitic remark. The victim suffered a cut to his head. California Governor Gavin Newsom called the attack appalling and said the person responsible must be held to full account. Video obtained by the Seattle Police Department appears to show two separate hit-and-run crashes, and investigators say in both cases the drivers intentionally struck pedestrians. Some of the video clips were recorded inside the vehicles involved in those crashes. Fox 13's Alejandra Guzman has more tonight on the search for the drivers and the people they're accused of hitting.
It's not only alarming to see, but to listen to as well. A passenger is heard encouraging the driver to hit someone with a car.
That have me extremely concerned.
Not one, but two hit-and-run incidents. The first reported around 1:50 a.m. on November 26th on North 107th Street West. Take a look. Surveillance cameras captured this. Pay close attention to the red circle, a car veering left to hit a pedestrian. It all happens so fast. The car doesn't stop after police say it targeted a woman, purposely hitting her. Here's an angle from inside the car. They hit them. And laugh. Cell phone video detectives discovered. It happens again a few blocks away. Police say the second victim was walking in the bus lane when they were hit from behind. The person flies over the car. Those responsible heard laughing.
Tonight I'm asking for anyone with information to please come forward.
Seattle police says the victims haven't come forward, but based on speed, they believe they were seriously hurt.
And that was Fox 13's Alejandra Guzman reporting for us tonight. Investigators have not said how they obtained those videos recorded from inside the vehicles that struck the pedestrians. Turning now to our weather here in the West, and there's finally enough snow on the ground to reopen Stevens Pass Ski Resort in Washington. That resort, located about 170 miles east of Seattle, is planning to open up its season tomorrow. Storms that crossed the state last week dumped enough snow to make tomorrow's opening possible. Late last month, some mountains in Washington were as much as 12 inches behind normal precipitation levels, but catching up quickly here. KTVU meteorologist Rosemary Orozco is tracking the snow and the rest of the weather across the West. Rosemary?
Yes, Alex. Wow, all that snow looks lovely, doesn't it? Here's a view of Seattle this afternoon where there were gray skies, a little bit of rain out there, 48 degrees the afternoon high. Meanwhile, over towards the Stevens Pass, the 7-day snowfall total now 24 inches and the base depth has grown to 36 inches. But this system here that moved through the Pacific Northwest is going to be working its way towards the south and east in the next day or so, bypassing California. But what it does when it does drop on the backside of California it begins to increase the wind, and it's that offshore wind that actually increases the fire danger over parts of California. So here's a look at tomorrow night. There's the system right there. You can see kind of the counterclockwise motion going on. This is going to bring a little bit of snow to areas in the higher elevations of Nevada as well as Utah. But for California, it's going to create the Santa Ana winds. Once again, this will be the second time in less than a week, and the winds are expected to kick up on Wednesday. There's a look at what we are expecting. Winds anywhere from 20 to 30 miles per hour, perhaps even gusting stronger early in the day and then tapering off Wednesday evening. This is the exact same area where a fire started over the weekend, and right now in Ventura County, that fire continues to burn. The South Fire, now more than 2,700 acres, is only about 50% contained. And again, this is sort of the area where those winds are expected to return on Wednesday. Meanwhile, the rest of the West is going to be dry and relatively mild in California. Low 60s for San Francisco over the next few days. Upper 60s to low 70s from Los Angeles into the desert southwest of Phoenix, Arizona. You get to the Intermountain West, it's going to be a chilly one. On Tuesday, the afternoon high 38, a near repeat for Wednesday. On Thursday into the 40s. And for the Pacific Northwest, dry for the time being, mid to upper 40s. And for much of the West, been waiting on some rain and some more snow. It looks like by the back end of the weekend and into next week is when we will see that pattern switch and hopefully some wet weather returning to the West Coast. Alex?
All right, that would be nice. Rosemary, thank you. Marine biologists are trying to figure out how a 52-foot fin whale died along a San Diego beach. Spectators surrounded the whale. It was bleeding from its side, but scientists say they think that is likely from sharks and birds after its death. There are no obvious signs of trauma like ship propeller marks or gashes.
We thought it was a tarp from out in the water, but eventually we realized it was a whale, and I've never seen anything like it.
I've lived here for 7 years, and I've never seen a whale on the beach before.
We did see signs or evidence of perhaps scavenging from sharks. There were some rake marks in it, but nothing that would have killed this animal.
Researchers say the whale was a young female. Fin whales can grow up to 80 feet long, and they're the second largest whales in the world behind the blue whale. Two West Coast lawmakers are pushing an effort they say will limit Wall Street's influence on the housing market. Oregon Senator Jeff Merkley and Washington Congressman Adam Smith, both Democrats, have each introduced legislation that would ban hedge funds from buying and owning single-family homes. Hedge funds are corporations or partnerships that manage investor funds, often using aggressive strategies to maximize returns. Congressman Smith says their ability to buy homes makes the market too competitive for many regular buyers.
Look, if you don't have money to begin with, one of the best ways to grow wealth is in home purchases. It's happened for many Americans throughout, the post-World War II world. You buy that first home, it appreciates in value, you get a little profit from that, and that's what enables you to then sort of expand into the middle class. If hedge funds are coming in and buying these up, competing with these first-time home buyers, the hedge funds come in, they do cash-only offers. They don't care about inspections, and they're willing to pay more because it's a long-term investment and they've got the cushion to do it. And it just drives people out of the housing market and drives up the cost of housing.
The End Hedge Fund Control of American Homes Act would require those companies to sell off all single-family homes over the next decade and would also prohibit hedge fund ownership of any new homes in the future. President Biden is hosting a reception for Hanukkah at the White House tonight. First Gentleman Doug Emhoff is also at the gathering, lighting the White House menorah for the occasion. President Biden addressed the crowd, saying Hanukkah is a timeless story of miracles, and the president reaffirmed his commitment to Israel's safety and its right to exist as an independent state. Up next on West Coast Wrap tonight, many children who love baseball can't afford to play the sport because of all the expensive equipment that's needed. Up next, one Arizona teenager puts together a plan to get more kids out onto the field. Also, we'll help you get ready for the holiday travel rush, and it will be busy. One Arizona teenager set out to help make it possible for children in other countries to play baseball. But what he found out along the way was that children closer to home needed his help too. Fox 10's Steve Nielsen shows us how he's working to help make the sport accessible to as many kids as possible.
Baseball is everything for 16-year-old Ryan Penny, throwing with his dad. The Chaparral High pitcher says his older brother's now playing college ball in New Hampshire. They've played in big games, but none bigger than on a littered field with young kids in the Dominican Republic.
It was amazing, like just seeing the kids' faces and just being in the island and experiencing, like getting to see them play baseball, getting to play baseball too against these kids was just priceless.
A few years back, the family started the Home to First Foundation after seeing the need there, placing donation boxes for used baseball gear and cold beer and cheeseburgers restaurants. When they brought their first donations in 2021, Ryan saw how big that need really was.
Most of it just shared, like one helmet for a team, and it's really common, and they're used to it. You know, they're grateful for what they have. A lot of shared gloves. It's torn. You know, like we see some kids with plastic bottles on for shoes. Very minimal, like just really not good equipment, not good at all.
Each kid got donated gloves, bats, helmets, and gear, but then they realized they saw similar scenes closer to home.
There's a lot of need here too. There's a lot of financially challenged communities here in Arizona.
In the last 3 years, they've donated thousands of pounds of equipment locally into the DR, and they started giving out scholarships for club teams, now even recruiting players at other high schools to start drives at their schools.
They're all for it because they recognize that they're blessed and really lucky to have all the equipment they have. And
he said the donations are rewarding and hopes they can only grow from here.
Just need to go out and do it, and it doesn't take a lot of work, and we're all blessed to be where we're at.
Steve Nielsen, Fox 10 News.
Well, it's that time of year again when AAA counts up how many people are going to take a trip for the holidays, and it looks like it's going to be a blockbuster travel season. The insurance group says more than 115 million people will likely travel 50 miles or more from home between December 23rd and New Year's Day. It's the second highest year-end forecast since the year 2000 when AAA first began tracking holiday travel. And AAA says about 104 million people are going to hit the road. The busiest days for traffic are expected to be December 23rd and December 28th. AAA says 7.5 million people are expected to fly this year, and more than 4 million people are expected to travel by other means like buses, trains, or ferries. However you travel, please travel safely this holiday season. That does it for West Coast Wrap tonight. We appreciate you watching. You can stay up to date on all of the stories we are covering online at our website. That is westcoastwrap.com. And another important reminder for you tonight that you can stream all of our shows on your smart TV. All you have to do is download the Fox Local app. That does it for us tonight. We hope you have a great rest of your night. I will see you back here tomorrow night.